One evening, after a particularly stressful and conflict-ridden day, Martin Luther King retired for the night. On the verge of falling asleep, he received an angry phone call, threatening his life and the lives of his wife and children. Unable to sleep, King went downstairs to fix a pot of coffee. King describes an unexpected theophany or encounter with God during this spiritual crisis. I was ready to give up. I was trying to think of a way to move out of the picture without appearing to be a coward. In this state of exhaustion, when my courage was almost gone, I determined to take my problem to God. My head in my hands, I bowed over the kitchen table and I prayed. I am here taking a stand for what I believed is right. But now I'm afraid. The people are looking at me for leadership, and if I stand before them without strength or courage, they too will falter. I'm at the end of my powers. I have nothing left. I've come to the point where I can't face it alone. As members of 12-step movement and persons in crisis often assert, when you hit rock bottom, you may discover that you are standing on solid rock. King continues, at that moment, I experienced the presence of the divine as I've never experienced it. It seems as though I could hear the quiet assurance of an inner voice saying, stand up for righteousness, stand up for truth. God will be at your side forever. Following his experience of God's still small voice in the middle of his personal storm, King affirms, the outer situation remained the same, but God had given me inner calm. 3 days later, King's home was bombed, but King remained rooted in God's faithfulness. His encounter with God had given him strength to face whatever storms would lie ahead, not only in the Montgomery bus boycott, but over the next decade as King championed civil rights of African Americans and called America to seek justice and peace at home and abroad. Activists can be mystics, and mystics can be activists. Encountering God in the wee hours of the morning energized King in the same way the encounter with God energized Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Amos, all of whom experienced a deep connection with God that inspired them to speak truth to power and challenge injustice and idolatry. Encountering God, we can find the resources to be prayerful prophets, confronting racism and sexism and violence and greed, while seeking reconciliation with those whose actions promote injustice and polarization. The sighs too deep for words, echoing deep in our hearts, may inspire us to recognize the holiness hidden in those persons whose actions we must denounce for the sake of God's realm of shalom. King's prophetic prayerfulness led to threats on his life, physical attacks, and eventually martyrdom. Still, hatred could not defeat his prophetic dream of God's shalom, nor could conflict silence his critique of economic justice in the Vietnam War. King's most famous words spoke of God's dream for a truly United States of America, living out the founder's implausible vision of all persons created equal and endowed with unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down at the table together, the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, little black boys and black girls will be able to be with little white boys and white girls as brothers or sisters. King knew that divine power is present in weakness, and grace is sufficient for times of trial. He embodied the affirmation that nothing can separate us from the love of God. just a day before his death by assassination in Memphis, Tennessee. Martin Luther King described a lived faith in which God's companionship followed us all the days of our lives. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it doesn't matter with me now. I've seen the mountaintop, and I don't mind. Like anybody, I'd like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. I'm not fearing any man, for my eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. So the dream lives on, the dream of prophetic healing, of liberty and justice for all, of a nation, a world where justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. For God is with us, and God's way shall overcome.